Greetings, everyone. This is the Hipster Snek, and today with me are Mr. Ditaku.
I am a 1 out of 256 level drop.
He is. It's a real pain in the butt sometimes. And also, Master Clockwork.
I am a legendary crafted accessory that you need to spend 3 weeks grinding the required materials for.
Oof. It probably doesn't help my case that I'm just common loot that everyone uses as a glam template.
Oh man, a snack, but I have like 300,000 of those.
I'm just going to wear it as a scarf. No, please let me down. I'm scared of heights.
Oh god, it's tightening.
And today, we have banded together to combine our amazing magical powers to bring you a new segment that we are tentatively calling Spicy Spaghetti. We're going to bring out our hot takes and you know what boils my cheese moments and everything that falls into that vague, nebulous category of grousing. Gentlemen,
Okay, I have one.
Who would like to begin?
I have one.
All right.
Okay, so I'm gonna because I'm not gonna start out swinging with my like big one, and you already know what this is,
right?
But I'm gonna say this because I was thinking about this actually right after the other thing that I told you about. My other thing was because of our conversation last night, where we were actually once again, this is going to be our Civil War moment. Pineapple on pizza. We then started talking about other commentators who had chimed in on the conflict of pineapple on pizza or no. Whereupon you brought up Aiden Paladin saying that pineapple on pizza was good.
Yes.
Whereupon I brought up the fact that she likes Daredevil. And what even is Daredevil? Daredevil is a guy who is blind, who can see. And I mean, what has Daredevil even done for us? I mean, he's just given Frank Miller and these Eastman and Laird guys, they've given some things, and so I started thinking on that as I do, and I'm like, I gotta say, I really don't think Daredevil is that good of a character, and by extension, I really am not like one of these people who's like, oh my God, ride or die for the Turtles. Because, I mean, it just wasn't my thing. That led me to go, okay, but what is the thing I am ride or die for? Which is Thundercats. And I'll say this, it is goofy as heck. I mean, it literally is muscle furries in space fighting an old man. Who literally they woke up with their muscle furry, synth rock, and the two of them are just fighting. And that literally is basically what it boils down to. And yet, I would argue that, because of that cheese, I think it's good. And also the fact that Rankin Bass just has this like weird, unerring ability to just like, you, small Japanese studio, you are going to animate our stuff. Hi. And so it's like basically I was a anime weeb well before I even realized I was in anime weeb effectively because of this. But this is not just a rag on the Turtles because we've already established them. Yeah. But the thing that I actually was thinking about, because there's basically the other there's He-Man, which honestly I was not alive for. I could not tell you about He-Man apart from the visceral like me a monkey, me big, me punch. I can only assume that's the rationale behind why He-Man was big. I couldn't tell you. That was before my time. Literally, that was before my time. That was before in the olden days. G1 Transformers. I do not understand why it got as huge as it is. I mean, on a certain level, I as like thinking back into the mists of time, I can understand like little, 7-year-old Itaku being like, ah, man, it's a robot that transforms into a plane. That's awesome. And yes, Starscream was in fact my favorite out of the G1s, just because
Oh, gee, the Pugum likes the backstabbing crazy.
I was a plain kid when I was little. I loved jet fighters, and so the little fighter plane that transformed into a dude, I'm like, that is awesome. I never really understood the appeal of Optimus Prime because I'm like, it's just a truck. He's just a dude who turns into a truck. That's lame. Now, on the other hand, no, Megatron, I'm like, he's just a gun who turns into a guy. That's what?
Little self-defeating if you think about it.
And honestly, the thing that really boiled my cheese as the little autistic little Pugum boy that I was, little propeller hat Itaku, in Tomo babies. I never could get over the fact that it's like, here's Megatron, who's, like bigger than a building, and yet he transforms into this gun. It's like, it's tiny. It's like tinier than like the tiny little cars that some of the Transformers transform into.
Yeah.
I'm like, where did like even as an autistic little boy who didn't understand, physics, I'm like, where did your parts go?
Yeah, so, that's a fair question.
I'm just, so ultimately my thing is like, I don't understand where G1 Transformers like gets all this like ride or die, like, you don't understand the deepest lore. I'm like, deepest lore? Do they ever actually go into in the cartoons like what they're fighting for?
No.
You can say what you will about Thundercats, but here's the thing. They actually explain the reason why the mutants are there, why the Thundercats are there, why Mum-Ra's there, and why they're all fighting. I mean, there will be points where they will literally be like, God, I've got luxurious hair, but you know what else, kids? Lying, he turns to the camera, is wrong. But at least they explain why they're fighting and why they have to explain why lying is wrong. In G1 Transformers, I do not, for the life of me, remember why they were fighting, because it's like, on some hand, they're like, it's an ideological dispute. On the other hand, it's like, they were fighting because their society is dying. On the other hand, it's like they're cosmic giant planet robots fighting each other. And it's basically one tribe from one giant planet robot and another tribe from another it's all about, literal space fuel. And they're literally fighting over space petroleum.
A lot of it was very much like excuse plot in the cartoon. It wasn't until the serialized comics came out that any semblance of any greater narrative was added to Transformers. Now, that said, like, I get it to some certain extent, like Itaku said, like, if you have cool robots and they're doing cool robot things. Okay, I get it. Little boys totally would be hyped for that kind of thing. I understand. You don't have to explain that to me. But yeah, it's been blown a bit, shall we say, out of proportion. And 8 Michael Bay movies later,
has there been 8? By my reckoning, there were 7.
I have no idea, dude.
Okay, so I have to ask then, Professor. I aired my dirty laundry. Which out of the original Transformers is your favorite?
Ironside. He was the big guy. He was, he was the kind of like the wise older veteran, grizzled soldier type. And
I was about to say, I know
that's just cool. He's like the John Wayne of Transformers.
I was about to say, I know Rhinox is yours in Beast Wars, but I don't. Yeah, I was about to say, okay, that's not a bad pick. Not a bad pick.
What about you, Clockwork? Did you have a favorite Transformer?
I barely watched Transformers, unfortunately. I saw a couple episodes of different series every now and then, but I never really formed an opinion other than it was Optimus Prime versus my freaking Megatron. Thank you.
Let's just say
I don't know why. I
Megatron.
don't know why it took me so long to remember his name.
I literally had a diatribe just not 2 minutes ago about him.
Well,
So-
I mean, it kind of sounds like not really so much an opinion, so much as you developed a vague understanding of the most basic elements. It's kind of like I remember when I did my Let's Play through FNAF World, and Ditaku was like just on the periphery enough to comment on a lot of the stupid things that I was bringing up, but I was like way more engrossed, and I'm like, let me tell you, being a fan of this series is really, really difficult at times.
And honestly, I actually really, really enjoyed that because it kind of gave context to a lot of things that I've kind of osmosized as your friend who's like really big into it.
Right.
It's kind of funny now that I'm thinking about it, like, getting back into Star Trek. Honestly, I feel like that and you're like, oh yeah, I like Star Trek. But I'm like, no, man, you don't understand. I really like Star Trek. So
yeah, Ditaku was like, oh, okay, let me tell you all about all this stuff. And I'm just like, hello, this is Dog.
Hello, this is Captain Kirk. Beat me up, Scotty.
I saw a little bit of the original series and a little bit of Next Generation and a couple of the original movies. And he's like, bro, we're going in. We're going to play some Star Trek Online. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And I get in, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not playing a Fedi because the Federation is dumb. So I'm going to play a Klingon. And Yutaka was like, cool, okay, Klingon is a good choice. I respect that choice. And I'm like, I'm going to just go around like blowing up Fedi ships, and I'm not going to feel bad about it. And he's like, dude, you don't understand. That's like normal. That's a Klingon giving someone an honorable death. You're actually being a really good Klingon right now. And I'm like, oh my god, maybe I do understand.
Yep. Yep. One of the like generic raids is literally to go raiding on Federation shipping lanes, and you one of your things is you can just go around. And some of the quote-unquote battleships you can encounter, you can either just let them drift off into space, or you can be like, you have fought well, and you can scuttle them and kill the people who are still alive and give them a warrior's death, which is a good thing, because according to what they believe, if you die in battle, then you go to warrior heaven. So, yeah.
Yeah, so inadvertently, without realizing it, I ended up being pretty halfway decent as a Klingon. Of course, likewise, during that Let's Play, I thought you were a bit more, you knew more about it than I suspected either of you would know. So that was kind of pleasant to see how much you osmosized from my ridiculous fandom.
Well, thank you. So, anyways, that was my entire thing. Like, I just don't understand why why Transformers basically blew up into what it is, because there really isn't that much to the cartoon, which is like basically like, oh, this is the OG, this is the foundation. It's like, yeah, but you literally have a foundation made out of Play-Doh.
A lot of stuff was retroactively added through the years. It's like, I mean, technically that's true of a lot of things that people take for granted. Like a lot of the fact that Donald Duck, of all characters, has deepest lore. And like it came from the fact that for a long time, most of his stories were told in comics form. And when you're doing a serialized comic, let alone a monthly or worse yet, a weekly, you start flying by the seat of your pants and like, okay, here's an intrigue plot. Did you know that Donald Duck is only half duck?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff from the DuckTales actually came from the comics first, which is pretty wild, honestly.
And you know what? I have a few bugbears that I could get out.
Well, I've said my piece, at least my first piece I wanted to do. What do you got on the plate there, Professor?
Okay, here's my thing. Disney Corporation, for a long, long time, their key idea was, hey, let's reach into the public domain and going to adapt the story update some stuff, change a few details to make things more compelling, and boom, you have the Disney Renaissance age. Like Aladdin, the original Aladdin is one of the finest animated features ever put to film.
I that's honestly my favorite Disney film, period. So
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
It was great. It was fantastic. It was everything a film should be. And like technically it's not true to the original story, but it doesn't need to be. And it's still told
Honestly,
a really compelling story in a good way.
Honestly, you don't want a true to the 1001 Nights version of Aladdin. It's way bloodier and way worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
No, it's like, but they told a compelling story from the source material, and it totally worked. So the thing that I find really interesting is Disney is super happy to steal from the public domain. And that's what the public domain exists for. But they're the reason why things are so difficult to get into the public domain. And honestly, I kind of feel like that should really just disqualify Disney from ever adapting anything again. And they're just like, have to be bound by blood oath to only try original stories. They won't work, as their most recent outings have shown. None of them are going to work, but like they should still be bound to never touch the public domain again because of this garbage that they're responsible for.
Honestly, I think it's a lot of it is trademark. It's not copyright so much, which is I think part of the problem is a lot of people think it's copyright when it's actually trademark. And I agree. A lot of trademark law needs to be deregulated, which is kind of the problem.
Yeah.
I agree. Honestly, I think Disney needs to be seriously looked into because a lot of their there's a lot of shenanigans, shall we say. And the more I look into it, the more I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I actually liked this corporation at one point, which is a shame because once again, as you said, they did a lot of really cool works.
Yep.
And I liked a lot of them.
I was going to say, but
that being said,
mark stuff, there's a lot of stuff you could probably investigate into them and find some really shady stuff.
Well, that's what
I'm going to say this though.
Good.
If I can just say one thing, this is a way more minor thing, but it kind of leapfrogs off of your point there, Professor.
Yeah.
Speaking of their modern works that are like considered popular, I do not understand why Encanto, especially, but a lot of their modern stuff, but Encanto especially is like big because I watched Encanto because my little sister is like, oh, and gee, my baby sister, because I have a bunch of sisters.
The babby poop.
It's like, oh, gee, I want to watch this, and so I'm like, okay, I'll watch it with you. And she's like, this is great. I like the music, and I'm like, there literally is no. It is a granddaughter who is having a spat with her grandmother, and there's this big family, and they get the big family involved, and then she's like, I'm sorry, Grandma, and that's literally that's the conflict. She's like, I'm sorry, I was wrong, and the grandma's like, well, okay, and they both hug, and that's the end. And and there's also a magic house, which it basically is a giant red herring. And it's supposed to be like the inciting thing because the granddaughter's entire reason why she's fighting with the grandma is like, Grandma, you don't understand. This magic house didn't give me any magic powers. And there literally are other people in this village that are like, yeah, well, you don't have magic powers either because we're just regular people. Why do you think that you're just owed magic powers? And so I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, so what, is she going to go on like a quest to try and get magic powers? No. She just is like, I'm mad. Well, I'm sorry, Grandma. And then they hug it out, as a grandmother and a granddaughter do. And that's it. And it's like, that's the end of the movie. And I'm like, wow, that is like 90 minutes of faffing around for nothing. And yet it's like hugely popular and I don't know why. So that's my thing. I there's this series of movies that I don't get why they're popular. But Encanto especially, I'm just like, I don't get why people like it. No.
I mean, okay, here's a hot take.
Okay.
You guys ready for this?
This is literally what the thing is for. So by all means.
No, I mean this is might be among the spiciest things that I end up saying today.
It's okay. I'll have one that eclipses it, so everyone will get mad at me.
That's true. That's fair. That's true. Okay, here's the thing: the vast majority of books, of movies, of television, of music, of literally any form of entertainment whatsoever, short or long, is catered to the lowest common denominators of society. People, the people who are always talking about how authors and painters and such are in danger of being replaced by AI are correct in the sense that that lowest common denominator is going to be filled, because that's all AI can ever possibly hope to achieve. If you want to see something that I swear up and down that it sounds and looks like an AI made it, look up the trailers for Madam Web and tell me that an AI didn't just crap this out of a prompt. And that's the thing. You know why all those Hollywood writers are going to go, jobless? Is because they're already writing garbage. Most of it's trash. They don't try. They want safe, predictable, Big Bang Theory level of writing that makes people go, ha, this is so hashtag relatable. Let me tweets about it on the social Facebook medias. It is absolutely asinine, the things that become inexplicably popular overnight. That is the absolute blancmange porridge that we were warned about by people like Mark Twain, who actually had a clue what these people were actually up to.
Hey, now, that's an insult to Mont Blanc. He helped America kill God, okay?
I mean, you got me there.
That's a Final Fantasy Tactics joke there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that is exactly the broader underlying cultural point for me. Is just it's dumb. So much of it is so bad. Like, I remember seeing a breakdown of the movie Wish, which is also a recent Disney flop. And I was like, okay, so the king, for those who haven't seen it, like, the king has this magic power and can make wishes come true. But he's like, no, listen, you got to be really careful with this, because this could easily backfire. Just because someone thinks something on the surface is a good idea does not mean it will be in execution. And the entire point is just some rando is just like, oh, we should just grant all wishes regardless of consequences. And I'm like, why does it feel like an AI wrote this? This is dumb.
I'm pretty sure Fairly Odd Parents did that concept already and basically did it as a Twilight Zone horror.
Yeah.
Where, pretty much everyone got what they wanted, and then they realized, actually what you want and what you actually need are two entirely different things.
Very radically different concepts, yes.
Yeah.
And actually, I will say that it kind of dropped the ball at points. Fairly Odd Parents, by and large, was trying to make that point where the things that Timmy wanted were shortcuts, and just to make things easier or to ward off a temporary dull moment. But that's not how life is, and that isn't how he should be treating it. So most of the time, his own wishes were the causes of his own struggles, which I think is actually a very interesting way of handling the storytelling.
Yeah, that's a very Japanese way of thinking about superpowers. And a lot of their media, you'll notice, basically treats supernatural powers as effectively a burden. And it's something that you should never want. Rather than in, Anglosphere media, where they're like, I had these magical powers. I was put on spandex and become Dunning-Kruger man.
Well, even then, I think there were some writers. If we basically retconned the last 20 years of comics out of existence, maybe we would have a way of paving a good foundation forward. But there were some really interesting takes, especially, I remember there was this one that Cog showed me where someone did a really interesting edit of a Captain America speech from the Civil War arc, not the movie, the comic, the original comic arc, where he actually pointed out, like, most heroes get their powers completely by accident, and they're just trying to make the best of a bad situation. And they're the people who would willingly subject themselves to the things that we subjected ourselves to in order to get said power are probably not good people and would not be the people who put on the spandex and became a hero.
Yeah, there's a reason why Red Skull and Captain America come out very differently, and yet they have basically the same origin story.
Yeah, I mean, that is entirely the point. Good becomes great, bad becomes worse. Like that, but that requires a lot of nuanced thinking. But again, lowest common denominator.
I could tell you right now that it would be really easy for basically the last forever amount of time of Marvel Comics. You could easily just hand wave it away, and I will tell you exactly how you do it.
How's that?
Franklin Richard, Reed Richards' son, basically had a bad cold. And effectively the entire thing is him having a fever dream, and he's unconsciously using his powers as a reality shifter.
That would be amazing. That could right the ship. I can see that.
I mean, considering that people have argued, and I think this is actually pretty on point. This is one of those like wacky, wild theories where they're like, yeah, the Sentry is basically just Franklin trying to have adventures with his father. And so he produced the persona of the Sentry. So in order to just go around and be like a shining golden hero, while also simultaneously basically trying to lift up the life of this one vagrant who basically is not aware that he's effectively just, the pawn of this little 8-year-old kid. But yeah, I'm sure you could do something similar with, DC. And if they're like, oh yeah, it's just Mr. McSpicklick, he got into, the NyQuil,
He got a bad head cold, and the whatever equivalent of a head cold his species gets, and that's just what happened. And sorry about all that weird stuff and all the multiverse Batman stories that we won't shut up about.
No, okay, for that was Batmite having a head cold.
Yes.
And then the god of Batman, Barbatos, came, and all the Batman had to fight him. Are you okay, man? I have a 108-degree fever. I am not okay.
I need chicken noodle soup and a hug.
I don't want to touch you. I think I might get the uranium fever.
You might get radiation poisoning.
No, that's a good point, though, Professor. I honestly, apart from that joke, I really don't have any idea what to do apart from just going, maybe you should not hire a tutor.
Yeah, I mean.
Crazy idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just like someone's just gonna have to step up to the plate and do it better. And who better than us? I mean, really, cough, cough. This is foreshadowing for a future episode. Look forward to it.
When's the next? When is Wizards with Guns gonna drop there, Professor?
I need to do the rewrite. I need to fix the waifu problem.
The waifu problem?
I will explain.
TLDR, he realized halfway through his original idea, he's like, I actually like this one girl better than the other girl that I had who's the quote-unquote planned waifu character. And so his entire rewrite is largely going to simplify things, going to streamline some things, and also basically going to make it such that the character he likes is now actually showing up way earlier.
Spoiler alert, if you've been following along with the Snek plays, you already know who this character is, but I'm not going to say it now, so you'll have to go back and investigate on your own time.
Ta-da!
Intrigue plotline! No, okay, I just remembered, and this This is my brain acting like a crossword puzzle. Okay. This is a bugbear of mine, and also a hot take. But internet, y'all gentrified the word thick. Okay, I'm just saying you used it as a synonym for someone who is hot or attractive, and now it doesn't mean anything. That's not what that word means. Okay. Y'all are posting crap like chubby girl supremacy over the female avatar from Fire Emblem. What was it? I just got done playing the stupid game. Engage. They had the main character, the female avatar from Fire Emblem Engage, and put chubby girl supremacy. And I'm like, she is a generic anime girl with generic anime girl proportion. She ain't thick, bro. This ain't it. As the children,
I was about to say, like, generic, like the actual canon version of May is thick in Overwatch. Like, she's pleasantly plump, but not like excessively so, and she clearly has very well endowed feminine features.
Yes,
that is thick in my estimation.
Yes, that's fair.
In the olden times, Ditaku said, doffing his bowler cap, we would call this voluptuous.
Y'all internet types got to abbreviate everything, and then you start misusing words, forgetting that words actually have definitions tied to them. I don't even know what you Zoomers are up to. Y'all can't even put together multisyllabic words, so I don't know what to do with you. But yeah, thick is a word that means something, and it's not just, oh, she's cute. We have words for cute. It's not necessary.
That boils down to like the entire thing about fit girls. And like a lot of fit girls where they're very clearly they work out, but they still actually have that
yeah, no,
they still got it, as it were.
Yes.
Yep. Just yeah, no. I mean, I completely understand. The lowest common denominator just does not understand the highly nuanced nature of of taste, shall we say?
Yes. It's like, guys, learn what words mean before you use them. It will help you a great deal.
Is that all you got there, Professor?
Oh, okay. This is a personal one, and it's not really related to entertainment. But this is the hill I'm choosing to die on. Y'all need to stop not investigating what's in your food. I started researching stuff recently, and now I'm seeing like, oh, mayonnaise, it's just soybean oil. Ranch, it's canola oil. It's all these torturously, overly processed filler stuffs that are just horrible for you. Stop telling me that the Chick-fil-A sauce is delicious. It's soybean oil.
If you actually get like actual like made by yourself mayonnaise, I mean, it basically boils down to like egg sauce.
It's mostly egg, right?
Yeah, which is fine, and it's actually really good for you, and it's also why you should not have mayonnaise just hang out just in the open too long. But yeah, I understand. Like if you're getting like supermarket mayonnaise, that's not good. That's no good, as Snek would say.
Yeah.
But I mean, mayonnaise by itself, I enjoy it on my sandwiches.
Yeah, but most most mayonnaise that you buy in stores is just soybean oil. It's all soybean oil now.
Most sandwiches are soybean. No.
Oh, that would be heartbreaking. Can't have any.
What
sandwich.
have I been eating for? Like you talk Euro set.
Yeah. That's like seriously. Seed oils are just awful, and the more I'm learning, the more I'm just like, oh my god, I've been willingly putting this in my body, and this is just horrendous.
This is what he puts in our server. He just sends seed
oil memes.
Yes.
I will spread the truth. I will make it known.
Okay, Alex Jones.
We're breaking the conditioning.
All right. You've been very quiet there, Clockwork. Do you have anything that you want to?
I got one thing.
Air.
Unfortunately, I'm not the king of hot takes like these gentlemen are. But it's come up recently and it's annoyed me. And it feels for some reason there is a actual like divide on this for some reason. I don't understand why it is. So I'm gonna go somewhat on. I apologize. I know I'm not usually the one who does this, but I gotta explain a couple things as I don't explain things very well apparently either. So an MMORPG is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game.
Yes.
The keyword here is multiplayer, as in other people.
Right.
Other people have different play styles from each other.
Yes.
Sometimes they play correctly, quotation marks. Sometimes they play incorrectly, which is another quotation marks. Depending on the validity of how bad the play is or how good the play is, depends on if you can complete content or not.
All right.
If you can complete content, even if they're not doing something perfectly, you're still completing the content, even if it takes another minute or two. Some people, like me, have developed ways of being able to do content really fast. As in this case, in Final Fantasy XIV, I tank and I generally wall-to-wall pull. Because I know that my tank and my tanking abilities, I can take the damage, and my healer should be able to heal through it, even if he just stood there and just spammed his hardest heal on me the entire time. And we stand there for 3 minutes, for another minute, and let his mana regenerate. Some people
you're
don't like
also playing.
Some people don't like to play this way. Well, let me finish. Some people don't like to play this way, and I understand that. There's a thing that we can use here. It's called communication. Tell me that you don't like to play that way, or you feel like you don't like playing this way, and you'd rather be pulled smaller. I can accommodate for that. There's no problem with that. For some reason, but I've seen ramblings and ravings on Twitter/X of people going on about this weirdness of like people are going to like being verbally assaulted and stuff like that, of people doing their thing and people not wanting to communicate appropriately.
Yeah, you're asking us to communicate.
I know, right? I know. It's so difficult. I know it is. It's really hard to put words and just ask for someone to do something that has absolutely no ramifications on their own game, or very little ramifications on their own gameplay, but makes all the difference in someone's experience. It's very, very difficult.
I gotta say, though, yeah, basically, I would argue that, that's the onus is basically on the other players. If they don't like something, to go, excuse me, rest of the party, rest of the raid, could you like either explain something, or can we like change it? Can we like slow down or speed up or whatever? As you said, communicate. On the other hand, though, I'm like, on a certain level, I'm like, I just kind of assume that people are going to go as fast as they can in dungeons, just because that's just kind of what happens. As I don't really like it, but it's just kind of something that happens. Because for whatever reason, just it seemed like the average MMO player is just like, oh, mom said I can only play for an hour. I gotta go. So I'm like, okay, all right. I mean, I don't like it because, once again, I mean, I brought this up earlier. I've been playing for a couple of years now, and Old Monk, which is what I played when I first started 14, you constantly had to be hitting mobs in order to keep up your charge. And so you got, Mr. Warrior, who's like, I'm just going to pull everything. And you're like, but I would need to punch the goblin. Oh. Well, I guess I'm going to lose all my charge and therefore all my damage. And you can just feel the warriors, just ire burning into the back of your skull as you're like, I'm trying to rebuild my charge. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And there's another thing as another point I want to point out, and I apologize, Nick. I'm gonna put you on blast a little bit. Because I explained it to you beforehand, and you didn't learn the first time. You did learn over time, but you didn't the first time.
All right.
We were doing content, and Snek was a relatively new player playing a red mage, and he was not doing a proper rotation. I'll put it that way. Now, the thing is, though, is that Snek was not holding up us or going through the content. We did the content and went through it from beginning to end in the content being dungeons. I apologize. Guys. And it took a little bit longer because of it, but there was no problem with doing the content. We didn't wipe. I think we wiped once. I think that was my mistake. I think that was my mistake. I think I was out of sight of the healer in one fight or something like that. That was on me.
Yeah.
But I politely told say, hey, you're not doing this correctly. Would you like me to show you how to do it? And he didn't get it the first time. And I was like, that's fine. We could figure it out later after we're done doing it. Because we weren't holding anybody up. We were just doing everything slower. So if somebody is doing something wrong, they don't get it, but it is not impeding content. That is not any. There's no excuse for you to go on to somebody. There's no excuse for ever to start going off on somebody unless they're like, being. No, actually, no. I'll put it. Actually, no. I'm gonna stop myself there. There's no reason for it at all. But I know we're all human and we're all going to do it one or another.
If they're being nakedly malicious, I would argue there's grounds to be like, dude, what's your problem?
I'm the believer that I like to be the bigger person in regards. And sometimes fair. I can be heated. Sometimes I might go off with somebody if they're really asking for it. It's one of those days, but I generally represent just be the bigger person, just walk away from it, blacklist them, do whatever you need. Not blacklist them or block them is what I'm trying to say. Get them, make sure that they can't contact you anymore. But if they're not impeding content, there's no reason to go off on somebody in that regard, because if they're still learning or something like that, that's one reason that's how they learn is to play. And for people to tell them, hey, you're not doing this entirely properly. I could show you how to do it. Would you like me to show you? If they say no, and it's not impeding content, there's no reason for you to, have a fit and stop the content until they figure it out. If you go all the way through, they still haven't learned anything one way or another. Either they will learn or they might stop playing. I don't know. Depends on if they stop content at one point or another. But that's what I want to say is that communication is a very important thing in a game where you're playing with other people. And I know that Final Fantasy 14, they're trying to make it so you can play through pretty much the entire game alone with NPCs. And I believe that is a nice thing to do for people who might have social anxiety and stuff like that and still want to play the game. But when it comes to having to do raid content and stuff like that, at one point where that's not available and they have gone through content, they don't know how to do the content appropriately or don't know do the rotation appropriately or do anything appropriately because no one has tried to show them or anything if they haven't got. It's going to be a really weird experience for them in the beginning. I can guarantee it that much because raid content is very different than dungeon content.
I'm gonna say. I mean, even then, the raid scene in 14 is pretty elitist. I've actually seen people who have just been put a bunch of sprouts on the newbies who are given a little sprout in order to denote to other players that like, look, I am a newbie, and basically just is like, oh, look at all these sprouts. No wipe, and we wiped. But you know what? It's like, hey, I can remember back to the first time I did Crystal Tower, and I got killed at certain bosses. I'm like, it's fine. And at the end, we got to meme on Xanda, we got to meme on Amon. I literally was like, hey, to this ancient, half magic crystal guy who's like, I'm gonna hide in my room because I used to be emperor of the world. Like, that's nice, but you're not anymore. And it's all good, and we won. But people get really butthurt about that, and it's like, do you not remember like that you were a learner too? Once upon a time, you learn things. And I'll argue this though, Clockwork. I mean, they constantly are changing things. I mean, going back to, they like completely reworked Monk after the end of what was it, Shadowbringers?
Yeah.
And even then, they reworked it twice since then. And I can tell you, I'm like, oh my God, I completely have to relearn like what, my rotation is. So, not getting the rotation perfectly, I mean, shrug. Are you at least attempting to do, things correctly and at least utilizing your tools? That's more what I would be concerned about rather than, OMG, you're not right perfect. Because, I mean, that honestly changes. And it also, you're going into like, what is the ping of the person versus the other? Because I can tell you, there's been a lot of times in 14 where I'm like, I dodged out of the way of certain things, but because of my ping or whatever, I got hit by attacks anyway. So
what I want to say is that the initial portion of the rant is about communication and making sure that people are aware of your ability, whether you're a new player or if you're comfortable doing big pulls or not in dungeons, because that was the kind of the dividing point. When it comes to min-maxing versus just playing for fun, I really don't care one way or another what you play as. Because like I said, everybody has their own different play style. When it comes to learning your class over again after a rework, I mean, you learn that at your own pace. I had to learn Summoner again, and for like the third time, because they changed how, they changed it from just having a pet to summoning all the primals and everything like that. And all of a sudden, spoiler warning for, again, that's been out for quite a while now, and all this, you've probably seen it 100,000 times on Twitter already. And I've relearned Monk because I played Monk before too. When you used to have to build up Grease Lightning and keep twin or Snake Fist or something. I don't remember tag off the top of my head. So that way you had the increased damage and everything. And now it's just Grease Lightning is just a passive ability you have that just keeps keeps you going. And the main thing you only have to keep going now is just your twin Snake Fist and making sure you have your rotation going for your to build up your perfect balance and everything like that, and your different. So no, I completely understand it, and everyone learns at their own pace. I'm not expecting you to learn your rotation and be perfect at it from the get go. I'm just saying that everybody learns differently. If you learn faster than somebody, that's perfect. If you learn slower than somebody, that's fine too. As long as if somebody is slowing is impeding content where you cannot like defeat a boss or something because they're not doing a mechanic. For example, like in I can't remember if it was a Realm Reborn or a Heaven's Sword. There is a dungeon where you have to fight a turtle, and they probably reworked this during their thing. But you have to fight the turtle. You have to use the cannons. You have to fight him with the cannons. You can't.
Yeah, they reworked that guy.
You can't. Well, again, you can't fight him without the cannons. I've had people try to fight him without the cannons. It doesn't work.
Well, didn't past tense.
It didn't work, yes. So that's the case where, people need to learn or we can't get through the content. And again, I usually have a rule. My personal rule is 3 wipes. And I make a consideration. Are we learning from our mistakes and are we getting farther? If the answer is no, I generally leave. And I know that might seem a little messed up because like, you just left apart. Like if we're not growing in one way or another, then people are not understanding what's going on and people are not communicating, and we're never going to finish this at this point.
Like it's kind of a balancing act, really. Because like there's a certain expectation that the sprouts do need to grow and that there should be a certain level of patience on the more experienced player's part. But there comes an intersection of those concepts. Like, for example, there was, I think Tutaka was with me. We were going through some dungeon that happens right after level 30, which like right around the time you start getting your job stones. I think it was Hawk Manor. And the dude who was with us was some rando, and he didn't have his job stone. And I was like, hey, like, you don't have a stone. And he was just like, legit, like, what's that? What is a job stone? And I was like, oh, it makes you stronger.
Yeah, no.
I remember.
Yeah,
I was. Yes, I do.
Yeah, we were there for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was just like, dude, what's a job stone? I'm like, it makes you stronger. And he's like, oh, tell me how to get it. I want to have a job stone and be cool. So like, we just
I think he was a conjurer.
Yeah, that's right.
He was our healer.
Our healer. Because Clockwork was tanking for us, I think. And he was like really into it. He's like, yeah, I want to be stronger. I want to be better at the game. So like, teach me. And like, we weren't ugly or mean or anything. We're just like, hey, like we just kind of noticed you didn't have a job stone. And he was like, yeah, point me in the right direction. He was gung ho for receiving the critique. And like, he was better player for it. Again, it's communication, people. All relationships, regardless of their type, require communication. Like, especially in a place where you don't necessarily know who it is you're going to be working with.
And one thing that kind of clarify what I said before, the kind of 3 strikes, I'm out kind of thing. It also depends on situation. One of the harder, or two of the fights I would have left. I could, in my head, I would have considered leaving beforehand if it wasn't for the gradual buildup of completion. It was the Savage I did with Snek, which was all the new people doing Ultima. That one, in my head, I was like, I was going to go to the end. Number one, because I was with Snek and I didn't want to do that to him. But number two, because we actually kept gradually getting better to the point of completion. The second fight that I did, that I know that I would stake for long, would be like the Zodiac fight. That fight is ridiculously hard. Even I find it's ridiculously hard for newer players, even in the normal version, because a lot of the movement and stuff that is required from it. I know that one, I'm at least guaranteeing at least 2 off the bat for people just to learn what the mechanics are already, because I have not seen one person complete the I don't know what he calls it, when he has a square arena and he just turns it around and all the enemies do their attacks from the turned around state. I've never seen anybody complete that their first try at all. And I feel bad for it, because that's a grueling experience to go through as you're going through some of the newer content.
No, that's fair.
It all depends on context. I almost never left anything except for maybe, off the top of my head, maybe 3 or 4 dungeons in the past like couple of years, just because after like the 4th death and we haven't progressed in any sort of way. At that point, it's like it's punching the brick wall, and you're noticing that the brick is not chipping at all anymore. It's like what I'm just hurting my hands at this point. So yeah, there's my talk about communication and making sure you understand, and don't harass people. Don't do that. That doesn't help anybody. That doesn't support the situation. That just makes things worse and makes people want to leave, and you end up not getting any content done anyways because everybody's mad now.
No, that's a good point. Good point.
No, that's solid.
I'm perfectly honest. I don't know why I had to make this conversation in the first place. I figured it should have been pretty self-explanatory, but
you would think
some people need to hear it.
Welcome to the
internet. Honestly, I think it's the lowest common denominator that came in from WoW, where like before it honestly because it's a lot of it. It's like, oh, you're ruining things forever. I'm like, do you guys not remember old MSQ where it's like, well, it's like you're in the DC3, dropping onto France, and you're like, well, boys, you better start running. Why should we start running? Why should we start running? Why should we start running? And then you get destroyed by Magitech.
Yep.
And it's like, you should have started running, because then those guys wouldn't hit you. It's that sort of thing. But you don't learn that until you get destroyed by it. So it's just one of those things. Granted, all that's changed now, but I mean, it's just, and that's honestly like, that was an experience in and of itself. But so yeah, I'd attribute it to all the WoW kiddies coming over to 14.
I want to also point out, when you say that, is that unless something has changed in modern, which I don't know of modern WoW, I haven't played in the past like 3 expansions at all. I've played some been playing classic with friends. When it comes to dungeon groups and raid groups and everything, There is a large, I'll say not giant, there is a large crutch that people take for granted, which is battle resing. A healer can spend like a quarter to like half their mana to res a player, and then use lucid dreaming or one lucid dreaming, and hopefully no one else dies, and have to spend more mana to do it while they're still trying to heal people. In Warcraft, only one class can do that, and that's the druid, and it's on like a 30-40 minute cooldown, or even more, at least like a 60-minute cooldown, actually, like an hour. Fights don't generally last an hour. So if someone's gonna die, if someone dies, they're dead. You lost that DPS, you lost that tank. If you lost the main tank and the off tank, and there's main tank off tank mechanics, you're pretty much done. Just wipe and restart. It's a lot more unforgiving in that regard. So I don't 100% put it on, I put it on the change and, and the mentality. It's losing or dying in Warcraft can be a little bit disheartening, because if one person dies, you don't have the DPS to do something because they died, then, it's more nuanced on them. While in Final Fantasy, you can just res them. They do get a debuff. You do lose 25% of your stats or something like that. You're easier. You die easier, and you don't do as much damage, but you're alive still. You still can do damage. You can still heal. You can still tank, to a lesser degree. And while you get one of those for one person, and sometimes if you're a DPS, you ain't getting it. So you're sitting there floor tanking the entire fight if you messed up early, just to watch your team hopefully finish it.
The reason why I say that is because prior to 14 kind of taking over WoW's position because of Activision Blizzard just basically Amber herding the bed, it's because basically it was the MMO where it's once again the lowest common denominator kind of gravitated to.
Yeah.
So it's that lowest common denominator where you think about those people who are the ones who, have their spray on nacho cheese, and you realize that's the median. There are some who are even dumber than that, who are like, oh boy, Crayola crayons, those go on nachos. And you're like, oh no.
The seed oils, man, I freaking warned you.
Okay, I think it's time, gentlemen. I think it's time. I'm going to drop the jalapeno nuclear weapon.
Do it, Itaku, for great justice.
Okay. This is going to earn you no favors there, Professor. All right, I'm going to do it.
We're an hour in. Statistically, everyone has stopped watching.
Batman is just Champagne Socialist the Shadow. I'm just going to say it right now. It is literally just the Shadow, but I'm wealthy and rich, and I don't want to take care of, the poor people, except by punching them. And so, I'm just going to foster this, the poor to just increasingly become dystopian and ridiculous. So later on, when I put on my fabulous, superpower suit, I can just punch them, and I don't have to feel bad about it. And, we're not going to actually try and change the system. We're not going to try and make Gotham better. No, we're just going to punch them and then send them to a insane asylum, basically, where they can just escape and, begin the cycle again. And we never actually go, maybe we should just take care of these people. And by take care, I mean take care of them 6 feet under, because they clearly have no intention of rehabilitating.
Yeah, when your inmates have a 100% repeat record, it's time to start doing something a little more proactive than dressing up and announcing your daddy issues.
Maybe that's the reason why Harley Quinn decided to go evil. Wasn't because of the fact that, wasn't because of she was like, oh, Mr. J is so much better of a person. It's her going, I feel like I'd have better job security being a henchwoman than just being, potentially stabbed, at any given point by these superpowered freaks. Yeah, just That actually might make me like Harley Quinn rather than, the way she is now. I don't really like Batman or any of his like kind of the orbiting characters around him. But yeah, that is my basically, and I came to this conclusion yesterday, and I actually got whiplash. I'm like, oh my God, wow, I just said that, but I can't think of a counter.
That checks out.
Yeah, so that is my like spicy jalapeno nuclear bomb meatball.
And honestly, I think it was worth the wait. I think that was all right, gentlemen. Any last minute hot takes or observations for this evening?
No.
That was my spicy hot take for the evening.
Yeah, I'm good now too. I said my piece.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I even went in some places I didn't even expect to. But this has been the Hipster Snek, Dutaku, and Clockwork. And thank you for joining us for another awesome episode of the Tomodachi Bros podcast. We are going live every other week, alternating with the Tomodachi Brocade. Look for it on Wednesdays, tentatively into the foreseeable future. And also be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all the obligatory YouTube shilling that I am obligated by law to do. So, gentlemen.
And remember, ladies, gentlemen, helicopters, giant cosmic space ticks that are the final boss of Square Enix mid-90s RPGs. Remember, if you dislike what we said, it's our opinions. And like opinions, they're like buttholes. You gotta wipe your opinions to make sure that they don't get brown streaks in places you don't want brown streaks.
That is true facts. Words of wisdom.
I'm going back to the random encounter table now. Bye.
Bye.
And we will see you guys in the next one.
Thank you for listening to the Tomodachi Brothers Review Podcast, produced and recorded by the Hipster Snek, Dutaku, and Cog. Sound design and editing by executive producer Sean Taylor Brown with Cog Sound Engineering. Music written and performed by Sean Taylor Brown with Costas Vaz of Core Insight Studio on the drums. We hope you enjoyed this episode. See you next time.